Captain Lee Daeho checked his weapon one more time as the transport ship moved toward Proxima Station. The massive space station hung in the darkness like a metal flower, its arms spinning slowly around the central hub. Inside those arms, the most important beings in the galaxy were meeting to discuss the pirate problem that was getting worse every day. "Sir, we're almost there," said Sergeant Kim Bora from the pilot's seat. She was a small woman, but tough as steel. Lee Daeho had seen her fight through 3 different battles without backing down once. "Good. Remember, this is just a simple guard job," Lee Daeho told his team. "We protect the meeting rooms while the big shots talk about what to do with the pirates." Corporal Park Min-soo laughed from his seat. "Easy money, right, boss?" Lee Daeho smiled. His team was good. They had worked together for 2 years now, and he trusted them with his life. Today should be simple. Just stand around, look tough, and make sure nobody bothered the alien diplomats while they argued about trade routes and security. The station's docking bay was huge, filled with ships from dozens of different worlds. Lee Daeho saw the long, thin ships that the bug-like Velthari used, and the round glowing vessels of the crystal people called Nixari. There were at least 20 different species here today, all trying to solve the pirate problem together. Ambassador Yoon Hae-jin met them at the airlock. She was an older woman with kind eyes, but Lee Daeho knew she was tough as nails when it came to negotiations. "Captain, thank you for coming," she said. "The security situation here is interesting." "What do you mean?" Lee Daeho asked. Each species brought their own guards. "The problem is, they all have very different ideas about how to do security work." She pointed down the corridor. "The Thekmar guards are these big lizard-like creatures, very strong, but they move slow. The Velthari brought these fast bug soldiers, but they're not very brave. And the Draconi guards are tough fighters, but they only care about individual combat." Lee Daeho nodded. He had worked with alien security forces before. They were all different, but they usually got the job done. The meeting room was enormous, with a dome-shaped ceiling that showed the stars. Outside, representatives from 47 different worlds sat around a circular table that could have held a small army. Each group had their guards standing behind them, trying to look important. For 3 hours, Lee Daeho and his team stood at their positions while the aliens argued. The pirates were getting bolder, hitting bigger targets. Trade routes were becoming dangerous. Something had to be done, but nobody could agree on what. That's when the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the station as a voice came over the speakers. "This is the Crimson Fleet. Surrender now and nobody gets hurt." Lee Daeho saw the other guards react immediately. The big Thekmar lizards started moving toward the exits, their weapons ready but their movements careful and slow. The Velthari bug soldiers began clicking to each other in their strange language, forming defensive positions near the walls. The Draconi warriors drew their plasma swords but stayed close to their own people. "What are your orders, sir?" Kim Bora asked, her hand already on her rifle. Lee Daeho looked around the room. The alien diplomats were panicking, some hiding under the table, others calling for their guards to protect them. The various security forces were all falling back to defensive positions, setting up barriers and calling for backup. "The pirates are in the station," he said calmly. "Our job is to protect this room and everyone in it. Sir, shouldn't we wait for the station security to handle this?" Park Min-soo asked. Lee Daeho shook his head. "Station security is probably fighting for their lives right now. We're on our own." Through the room's large windows, they could see explosions in other parts of the station. The pirates weren't just making threats, they were actually attacking. Small fighter ships were buzzing around the station's outer hull like angry wasps. Then the main doors exploded inward. 12 pirates in red armor came charging through the smoke, their weapons firing wildly. They were a mix of different species, all united by greed and violence. The alien guards immediately began falling back, forming protective circles around their own diplomats. But Lee Daeho's team did something different. "Bora, left side. Min-soo, right side. I'll take center," Lee Daeho shouted, and all 3 humans began moving forward, directly toward the attacking pirates. The aliens in the room stopped screaming and stared. The human guards weren't retreating. They weren't forming defensive positions. They were attacking, Kimbora dropped 2 pirates before they knew what hit them. Her rifle cracked again and again, each shot finding its target. Park Minsu flanked around the right side, using the furniture for cover as he picked off pirates one by one. Lee Dae-ho charged straight up the middle, his assault rifle chattering as he advanced. The Thekmar counselor whispered to his aide, "They're not retreating. Why aren't they retreating?" A Velthari representative clicked nervously. "This behavior makes no sense. They're outnumbered. They should fall back and wait for help." But the humans kept advancing. Even when plasma bolts burned through their armor, even when they were bleeding, they never stopped moving forward. Lee Dae-ho took a hit in the shoulder that spun him around, but he just switched his rifle to his other hand and kept firing. In less than 3 minutes, all 12 pirates were down. The 3 humans stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard, their armor smoking from plasma hits. Kimbora had burns on her arms. Park Minsu was limping from a leg wound. Lee Dae-ho's shoulder was bleeding badly, but they were still standing. And every single diplomat in the room was safe. The alien guards looked confused and frightened. They had never seen anything like this before. The humans hadn't just fought off the attack. They had hunted down every single pirate with a determination that seemed almost insane. Ambassador Yoon Hae-jin stared at her guards with a mixture of pride and concern. She had known humans were different, but this was something else entirely. The aliens around the room were whispering to each other in dozens of different languages, all asking the same question. What kind of species charges into a fight they can't win? Dr. Choi Yoonji sat in the waiting room outside the Galactic Council chambers, trying not to look nervous. As one of the few human experts in alien psychology, she had been called to answer questions about what happened at Proxima Station 3 weeks ago. The problem was she wasn't sure she had good answers. The doors opened with a soft hiss, and a tall, crystal-like being gestured for her to enter. This was Council Speaker Zethral of the Nixari, and his body gleamed like a living diamond in the chamber's bright lights. "Dr. Choi, thank you for coming," Zethral said, his voice sounding like wind chimes. "We need to understand what we witnessed." The council chamber was enormous, with representatives from dozens of worlds sitting in a great circle. Dr. Choi recognized many of the species from her studies. The reptilian Thekmar with their slow, careful movements. The insect-like Velthari, clicking nervously. The aquatic Murdani floating in their water-filled suits. All of them were staring at her with expressions she couldn't quite read. "Please sit," said Guraith, the Murdani representative. His voice bubbled through his water suit's speaker. "We have watched the security recordings from Proxima Station many times. Your species' behavior, it does not make sense." Dr. Choi took a deep breath. "What specifically would you like me to explain?" A large, armored creature she recognized as a Draconi warrior leaned forward. "Your guards advanced into enemy fire. They were outnumbered 4-1. Basic military tactics say to retreat, form defensive positions, and wait for backup. Why did they attack?" "Because their job was to protect the people in that room," Dr. Choi said simply. "But they could have protected those people by evacuating them to safety," said a Velthari representative, its mandibles clicking. "Moving them away from danger is protection. Moving toward danger is madness." Dr. Choi tried to think of how to explain. For humans, protection means making sure the threat is eliminated. If the pirates had escaped, they might have come back. Captain Lee's team made sure that couldn't happen. Zethral's crystal body pulsed with different colors. "Dr. Choi, we have studied the recordings. Your Captain Lee took a plasma bolt to the shoulder that should have put him down. Instead, he switched his weapon to his other hand and continued fighting. This is not tactical thinking. This is something else." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then Guraith spoke again. "In our culture, when a guard faces odds like that, they call for help and delay the enemy until help arrives. It is logical. It saves lives. The Thekmar way is to use our thick skin and strong bodies to form a wall between threats and civilians," added the large lizard-like counselor. "We do not charge into battle unless we are certain of victory." "Draconi warriors fight with honor," said the armored representative, But we fight smart. We choose our battles. We do not throw ourselves into hopeless situations. Dr. Choi felt a headache coming on. How could she explain something that seemed so obvious to her? Humans don't see it as hopeless. We see it as necessary. The doors to the chamber opened again, and Captain Jang Woo-bin from Human Military Intelligence walked in. He was a tall man with graying hair and the steady eyes of someone who had seen too many battles. "Captain Jang," Zethral said, "perhaps you can help us understand. From a military perspective, was Captain Lee's action at Proxima Station tactically sound?" Jang Woo-bin looked around the room, taking in all the alien faces staring at him. "No," he said bluntly. "From a purely tactical standpoint, advancing into superior numbers without backup is usually suicide." The aliens made various sounds of agreement. Several of them leaned forward, thinking they were finally getting somewhere. "But," Jang Woo-bin continued, "Captain Lee wasn't thinking tactically. He was thinking about his duty." "What is the difference?" asked a Velthari counselor. Jang Woo-bin activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Images began flowing past human soldiers throughout history. "This is from our planet's history. Soldiers throwing themselves on explosives to save their friends, firefighters running into burning buildings, police officers standing between criminals and innocent people, even when they're outgunned." The images kept coming. A small group of warriors holding a mountain pass against thousands of enemies. Pilots flying damaged aircraft away from populated areas instead of ejecting to safety. Rescue workers staying behind to help others while disasters approached. "You see," Jang Woo-bin said, "humans have this thing we call duty. When we accept responsibility for protecting something, we don't calculate odds. We don't weigh costs and benefits. We just do what needs to be done." A new voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. Dr. Lim Sun-hee, a human anthropologist, stepped forward. "If I may add something," she said. "The concept you're struggling with is honor. It doesn't translate well because most species think of honor as something you earn through victory. Humans think of honor as something you earn through trying, whether you win or lose." "This makes no evolutionary sense," said Kliktar, a Velthari war scholar. Her insect-like head tilted as she studied the humans. "Species that throw away their lives for others should have died out millions of years ago. How did you survive? Long enough to reach the stars?" Dr. Lim Sun-hee smiled sadly. "Because enough of us survived to take care of the ones who didn't." The chamber fell completely silent. The aliens looked at each other, their various expressions unreadable to human eyes but clearly troubled. Gur-Ith was the first to speak. "You are saying that humans evolved specifically to sacrifice themselves for others?" "Not exactly," Dr. Choi said. "We evolved to put the group's survival above individual survival. Sometimes that means sacrifice, but usually it just means doing your job even when it's dangerous." "But that's impossible," Kliktar insisted. "We have studied evolution for thousands of years. Individual survival always comes first. It has to, or the species dies out." Captain Jang Woo-bin shook his head. "Not for humans. Our ancestors lived in small groups where everyone depended on everyone else. The ones who would abandon their group to save themselves didn't pass on their genes. We're descended from the ones who stayed and fought." Zethral's crystal body went completely dark for a moment, then lit up again with rapidly shifting colors. "You are telling us that your entire species is genetically programmed to behave in ways that other species would consider insane?" "From your perspective, maybe," Dr. Lim Sun-hee said. "From our perspective, we're just doing what's right." The Draconi warrior leaned back in his chair, his armor clanking. "In 10,000 years of galactic history, we have never encountered a species like this. Every civilization we know developed logical survival strategies, camouflage, superior weapons, group tactics, advanced technology. You developed, what? A death wish?" "We developed loyalty," Dr. Choi said firmly. "And that loyalty made us strong enough to reach the stars." Kliktar's mandibles clicked rapidly. "This changes everything we thought we knew about evolution and civilization. If humans can develop spaceflight despite having suicidal tendencies, What else is possible? The chamber erupted in dozens of different languages as the representatives began talking among themselves. Dr. Choi could hear the fear in their voices, even through the translation devices. They weren't just confused about human behavior anymore. They were starting to realize that humans might be fundamentally different from every other species in the galaxy. And that thought terrified them. Admiral Park Jun-ho read the message on his desk display for the third time. The Galactic Council wanted human security for another diplomatic meeting, this time at Harmony Point, a neutral station near the galaxy's center. It seemed routine enough, but something about the request felt odd. "Sir, the security briefing is ready," said his aide, Lieutenant Kim Soo-jin. "Any special concerns?" Park Jun-ho asked. "Nothing unusual, sir. Standard diplomatic protection. Though," Kim Soo-jin hesitated. "What is it?" "The alien security forces seem unusually interested in our procedures. They've requested detailed information about our tactical responses." Park Jun-ho frowned. Since Proxima Station, every alien species had been asking questions about human military behavior. Most of them seemed nervous around human guards now, though they still requested human protection for important events. 3 days later, Security Chief Oh Ji-woo arrived at Harmony Point with her team. The station was smaller than Proxima but still impressive, with docking bays for hundreds of ships and meeting rooms that could hold delegates from every known civilization. "Corporals Nam Gi-tai and Yu Se-jin, you're with me," Oh Ji-woo said, as they reviewed the station layout. "We'll be covering the main council chamber while the alien security forces handle the outer areas." "Seems like a lot of security for a trade discussion," Nam Gi-tai observed, checking his weapon. "The pirates have been getting bolder," Yu Se-jin said. "Maybe they're just being careful." Oh Ji-woo nodded, but something felt wrong. She had been doing security work for 8 years, and her instincts were usually right. Today, those instincts were telling her to be ready for trouble. The council chamber was filled with representatives from 30 different worlds, all discussing new trade routes and security measures. Behind each delegation stood their guards, Tekmar warriors in their thick armor, Velthari soldiers with their rapid-fire weapons, Draconi fighters with their ceremonial swords, and dozens of others. In a hidden observation room above, the Chamber Council military advisor Mordek of the Draconi watched the humans through multiple camera feeds. Beside him sat representatives from several species, all studying the human security team. "The test will begin in 10 minutes, Mordek said. "Our hired actors are in position throughout the station. The weapons are all set to non-lethal levels, but the humans don't know that." Observer Zixaria, an energy being that looked like a floating ball of light, pulsed nervously. "Are we certain this is wise? After Proxima Station, we know how humans react to threats." "That's exactly why we need to test them," said Chief Analyst Korval of the data-loving Korthani. "We need to know if their behavior at Proxima was normal or exceptional." Below in the chamber, Oh Ji-woo felt her radio crackle to life. "Security Chief, we have reports of suspicious activity in Docking Bay 7. "Station security is handling it," came another voice. "All diplomatic security teams maintain positions." Oh Ji-woo frowned. That was standard procedure, but something about the voice on the radio seemed off. She looked around the room and noticed that several of the alien guards were exchanging glances. Suddenly, explosions echoed through the station. Emergency lights began flashing and a voice came over the speakers. "This is the Red Dawn Liberation Front. We have taken control of this station. Surrender immediately." The chamber erupted in panic. Delegates began shouting in dozens of languages, some diving under tables, others calling for their guards. The alien security forces immediately began implementing their standard procedures. The Thekmar guards formed a protective wall around their delegates and began moving toward the emergency exits. The Velthari soldiers clicked rapidly to each other and took defensive positions near the walls. The Draconi warriors drew their weapons but stayed close to their own people, ready to fight anyone who came too close. "All security teams implement evacuation protocol," came the voice over the radio. "Move delegates to secure areas and wait for backup." Oh Ji-woo watched as the alien guards began escorting their people out of the chamber. It was exactly what The tactical manuals said to do, get the civilians to safety and let station security handle the threat. But Oh Ji-woo had read different manuals. Gite Seijin, she said calmly into her radio. We have hostiles on the station. Our job is to make sure none of them get into this chamber. What are our orders, Chief? Nam-gite asked. Oh Ji-woo looked around the room. Half the alien delegates had already been evacuated, and their guards were setting up defensive positions in the corridors outside. But the human delegates were still here, and that meant the humans were still on duty. Seijin, you stay here and protect any delegates who haven't been evacuated yet. Gite, you're with me. We're going hunting. Hunting? Yu Si-jin asked. The terrorists are somewhere on this station, Oh Ji-woo said, checking her rifle. We're going to find them and stop them before they can hurt anyone. In the observation room above, the alien watchers stared in shock as the humans began moving toward the danger instead of away from it. They're doing it again, Mordek whispered. Even though they know they're outnumbered, even though backup is coming, they're advancing toward the threat. The other security forces are all following proper procedure, Korval noted. Protect civilians, establish defensive positions, wait for reinforcement. The humans are ignoring all standard tactical doctrine. Oh Ji-woo and Nam-gite moved through the station corridors like hunters tracking prey. They could hear gunfire from other sections, but instead of avoiding it, they moved toward it. When they found a group of terrorists trying to break into the station's computer core, they didn't call for backup or try to negotiate. They attacked. The fight was brutal and quick. Oh Ji-woo took a stun blast to the chest that should have put her down, but she rolled behind cover and kept firing. Nam-gite flanked around the side, using the corridor walls for protection as he picked off targets one by one. In 15 minutes, they had hunted down every single terrorist on the station. When the test was over and the truth was revealed, the alien observers sat in stunned silence. The humans had never even considered following standard evacuation procedures. The thought of retreating to a safe position while threats remained on the station had never entered their minds. Security Chief O, Mordek said when he met with the humans afterward. Did you not receive the evacuation orders? We received them, Oh Ji-woo said simply. Then why didn't you follow them? Oh Ji-woo looked at the Draconi advisor as if he had asked why she didn't grow wings and fly. Because our job is to guard the council chambers. That means making sure no threats can reach them. But station security was handling the situation, Zixaria pointed out. Station security was busy, Nam-gite said. We weren't. Captain Seo, Dong-min, the human liaison, arrived to debrief his people. When the aliens explained their confusion, he listened carefully and then gave them an answer that sent chills through every observer in the room. You hired us to guard the chambers, he said. That means nobody gets past us, nobody, not while we're alive. The alien representatives looked at each other with growing alarm. They had thought the incident at Proxima Station might have been unusual circumstances or exceptional individuals. Now they were beginning to realize that what they had witnessed wasn't the exception. It was just how humans worked, and that realization terrified them more than any pirate attack ever could. Chief Archivist Temnali of the Korthani floated in her datapod, hundreds of glowing screens surrounding her insect-like body. For 3 days, she had been diving deep into human historical databases, and what she found made her question everything she thought she knew about intelligent life. Professor Bayek Inho, she said to the human historian sitting beside her pod, I need you to explain something to me. According to your records, in the year 480 BCE, 300 human warriors held a mountain pass against an army of several 100,000 enemies. They knew they would die. Why did they stay? Professor Baek Inho, an elderly man with kind eyes and gray hair, smiled sadly. Because someone had to. If they had run away, the enemy army would have destroyed their city and killed their families. But surely they could have found another way. Better tactics, different strategies, diplomatic solutions? Maybe, Professor Beck said. But they didn't have time to find those solutions. They had to decide right then, run and let others die, or stay and die themselves. Temnali's compound eyes flickered rapidly across the data screens. This pattern appears throughout your history. Always the same choice, always the same decision. She pulled up more records. The Alamo, 1836. 189 human defenders against several thousand attackers. They all died. They bought time for the rest of Texas to organize, Professor Beck explained. Stalingrad, 1942. An entire city of humans refused to surrender even when their situation was hopeless. They knew that if they gave up, millions more would die. September 11, 2001. Passengers on an aircraft attacked hijackers even though they knew the plane would crash. Professor Bayek's voice grew quiet. They knew those hijackers planned to crash the plane into a building full of innocent people, so they chose to crash it in an empty field instead. Temnali pulled back from her screens, her data feeds slowing to a stop. Every human civilization on every continent during every time period, the same pattern over and over again. The door to the archive chamber opened, and Dr. Kang Miran entered. She was a human evolutionary biologist who had been called in to help explain the scientific basis for human behavior. Dr. Kang, Temnali said, I have been studying your species' history for days. From a purely logical standpoint, humans should have gone extinct millions of years ago. Your survival instincts are completely backwards. Dr. Kang sat down next to Professor Beck. That's where you're wrong, archivist. Our survival instincts work perfectly. They're just not individual survival instincts. What do you mean? Humans evolved in small tribal groups, usually 30 to 50 individuals. In that environment, the survival of the group was more important than the survival of any individual. A person who would abandon the tribe to save themselves was a person who weakened the tribe. Dr. Kang activated a holographic display showing early human communities. The individuals who put group survival first were the ones whose tribe survived long enough to have children. The selfish ones? Their tribes died out. Temnali processed this information. So you're saying that humans are genetically programmed to sacrifice themselves for others? Not exactly sacrifice, Professor Beck said. More like duty. We're programmed to do our job even when it's dangerous. Science counselor Vexithera of the Nexari materialized in the room, her crystal body glowing with nervous energy. I've been reviewing the data you've collected, archivist. The implications are disturbing. How so? Dr. Kang asked. Every species in the galaxy developed logical survival traits. The Thekmar evolved thick armor and group tactics. The Velthari developed speed and numbers. The Draconi became individual combat specialists. We Nexari developed advanced technology and energy shields. Vexithara's crystal body pulsed with rapid color changes. But humans evolved to die for strangers. This defies every model of evolution we've ever studied. War philosopher Krelnash of the ancient Eldarim entered the chamber, his tall, thin form moving gracefully despite his great age. I have been alive for over 2,000 years, he said in his wisping voice. I have seen the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations. Never have I encountered a species like humanity. What makes them so different? Temnali asked. Krelnash's large dark eyes focused on the humans. Every other species in the galaxy asks the same question when faced with danger. How do I survive? This? Humans ask a different question. How do I make sure others survive this? The room fell silent as the implications of this sank in. Dr. Kang spoke first. You're afraid of us, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Vexithera admitted. Your species reached the stars with technology no more advanced than ours. You had no special evolutionary advantages. No thick armor, no advanced camouflage, no energy weapons. You should have been extinct long before you developed spaceflight. But we survived, Professor Bayek said. That's exactly the problem, Krelnash replied. If a species with suicidal protective instincts can reach the stars, what else is possible? What other assumptions about evolution and intelligence are wrong? Lieutenant Colonel Moon Tae-sung, A human military officer had been listening quietly from the back of the room. Now he stepped forward. "You want to know what makes us different?" he said. "It's simple. You all evolved to survive. We evolved to make sure others survive." "But that makes no sense," Temnali protested. "How can a species survive by prioritizing other people's survival?" "Because," Moon Taisung said, "when everyone is willing to die for everyone else, the group as a whole becomes almost impossible to destroy." The alien representatives looked at each other with growing alarm. Vexathera's crystal body went completely dark for several seconds. "If humans will die for strangers," Krelnash said slowly, "what will they do for their own species?" The question hung in the air like a threat. Dr. Kang and Professor Bayek exchanged glances, but neither of them answered. They didn't need to. Everyone in the room already knew the answer. Temnali pulled up her final analysis on the main display. Charts and graphs filled the air, showing patterns of human behavior across thousands of years of history. "In all our studies of galactic civilizations," she said, "we've found that most species develop advanced technology to solve their survival problems. Better weapons, stronger defenses, faster ships. But humans developed something else." "What?" Vexathera asked. "They developed the ability to make other species want to protect them." The aliens in the room stared at the data in confusion. "Look at the pattern," Temnali continued. "Humans enter a region of space. They meet local species. Within a few years, those species are calling for human help when they have problems. Not because humans are the strongest or the smartest, but because humans are the only ones who will actually help." Lieutenant Colonel Moon smiled grimly. "We don't conquer worlds. We make friends with them, and friends protect each other." Krelnash's ancient eyes widened as he understood. "Your entire species is a weapon designed to make other species love you. We prefer to think of it as making other species trust us," Dr. Kang said. "The result is the same," Vexathara whispered. "You're the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and you've convinced everyone else to protect you." The implications of this realization settled over the room like a heavy blanket. The humans hadn't conquered the galaxy through force or technology. They had conquered it by making everyone else want them around. And now the other species were beginning to understand that they might already be too late to do anything about it. Grand Speaker Nethulan's ancient form dominated the center of the Galactic Council's main chamber. At over 3,000 years old, the crystalline being had seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations. Today, he faced a decision that would affect the future of 47 different species. All around the massive circular chamber, representatives from every member world sat in their designated areas. The air hummed with nervous energy as translation devices worked overtime, converting dozens of different languages into something everyone could understand. "We are here to decide a simple question." Nethulan's voice resonated through the chamber, like crystal bells. "Should humans be given exclusive rights to guard our most important facilities?" Counselor Yorgathi of the militaristic Hammerkin stood up, his metal-plated body gleaming under the chamber's lights. "The data is clear. Human guards have never failed to protect their assigned targets. Never. In 3 years of service, they have stopped 14 different attacks with 0 civilian casualties. But at what cost?" Peacekeeper Silwendra of the pacifist Lumiara glowed with soft blue light as she spoke. "They don't guard locations. They guard concepts. Honor, duty, protection. These are not tactical decisions. They are religious beliefs." "What's wrong with religious beliefs, or?" asked Representative Dalthok of the spiritual Zendari. "Many of us make decisions based on faith. The difference," Silwendra replied, "is that your faith tells you to seek peace. Their faith tells them to seek conflict." Major Huang Subin sat in the human delegation area, trying to stay calm while aliens debated the future of her species' role in galactic security. Beside her, Captain Ro Ye-jun shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "This is insane," Ro Ye-jun whispered. "They're talking about us like we're weapons instead of people." "Maybe we are weapons," Huang Subin replied quietly. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." Counselor Zexriel of the analytical Vorthani activated a holographic display showing security statistics. The numbers don't lie. Before human guards, we lost an average of 37 civilian lives per year to security incidents. Since humans began guarding our facilities, that number is 0. But look at the cost, insisted Kliktar, the Velthari war scholar. Human guards suffer 3 times more casualties than any other species. They're dying to keep us safe. And they do it willingly, Yorgothi pointed out. No one forces them to take these jobs. Defense Minister Morthak of the Draconi leaned forward, his scarred face serious. The question isn't whether humans are effective guards. The question is whether we can control them. A murmur ran through the chamber. This was the fear that many representatives had been afraid to voice. Explain, Nethulan said. Humans don't follow orders the way other species do, Morthak continued. They follow their conscience. What happens when their conscience tells them to disobey us? Ambassador Yoon Haijin, the senior human diplomat, stood up in the human section. May I address the council? Nethulan's crystal form pulsed once. Speak. You're debating whether to trust us with your security, Yoon Haijin said, but you're asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether you can control us, the question is whether you can trust us. What's the difference? Asked Silwendra. Control is about making someone do what you want them to do, Yoon Haijin replied. Trust is about knowing they'll do the right thing even when no one is watching. War scholar Temkris of the ancient Athel Nari spoke for the first time. Her species was older than most, and their words carried weight. In our long history, we have seen many guardian species come and go. They all eventually turned on those they were meant to protect. What makes humans different? Huang Subin stood up. Because we don't guard people for pay or for power. We guard them because it's right. That's exactly what terrifies us, Temkris replied. You're fanatics. The chamber erupted in noise as representatives began arguing among themselves. Some agreed with Temkris, others defended the humans. Nethulan let the debate continue for several minutes before calling for order. During our deliberations, he announced, the council chambers themselves have come under attack. Every being in the chamber froze. Emergency alarms began wailing as blast doors started to close. Through the chamber's massive windows, they could see explosions on other parts of the station. Corporate saboteurs have infiltrated the station, Nethulan continued calmly. They are attempting to steal classified defense plans from our secure servers. Most of the alien security forces immediately began implementing evacuation procedures. Guards from dozens of species started moving their delegates toward emergency exits, following standard protocols for protecting civilians during an attack. But Sergeant Lee Young-ho and his human security team did something different. They didn't move toward the exits. They moved toward the threat. Young-ho, what are you doing? Ambassador Yoon called after him. My job, Lee Young-ho replied simply, checking his weapon as he headed for the chamber's main entrance. The alien representatives watched in fascination and horror as the human guards split up to hunt down the saboteurs. While every other security force on the station was focused on getting civilians to safety, the humans were focused on eliminating the threat entirely. For 20 minutes, the delegates huddled in their emergency positions, while sounds of fighting echoed through the station's corridors. Plasma fire, explosions, and the distinctive crack of human assault rifles created a symphony of violence that made many of the peaceful species cover their ears. Then, suddenly, silence. Lee Young-ho's voice came over the communication system. Council chambers secure. All threats neutralized. No classified material was compromised. When the emergency was over and the truth was revealed, real saboteurs, real danger, real lives at stake, the alien representatives sat in stunned silence. Once again, they had watched human guards do exactly what they had done at Proxima Station and Harmony Point. They had hunted down every single threat while everyone else focused on running away. Nethulan's crystal form pulsed with slow, thoughtful colors. The vote will now commence. The chamber fell silent as representatives from 47 worlds made their decision. When the final tally was displayed, the result was unanimous. But the reasons were not what the humans expected. Humans will be granted exclusive rights to guard Galactic Council facilities, Nethulan announced. Not because they are the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they are the only species we have encountered that genuinely cannot be corrupted by the most basic instinct in the universe, the will to live. Ambassador Yoon stared at the Grand Speaker. You're not choosing us because we're the best guards. We're choosing you because you've shown us something disturbing about ourselves, Silwendra said quietly. When faced with real danger, every other species in this chamber chose survival over duty. Only humans chose duty over survival. And that terrifies us, added Temkris. But it also means we can trust you in ways we cannot trust ourselves. The vote was made official, and humans were granted exclusive security rights for all major Galactic Council facilities. But as the representatives filed out of the chamber, many of them wondered if they had just solved their security problem or created a much bigger one. Captain An Jae-hyuk took his first shift guarding the newly secured council chambers that evening. As he stood at his post, his personal communication device chimed with a message from his daughter back on Earth. Dad, my teacher wants to know what makes your job special. All the other kids' parents have normal jobs. What should I tell her? And mine. Jae-hyuk thought for a moment, then typed his reply. Tell her that other species guard things because it's their job. We guard things because someone has to. He sent the message and returned to his watch. Around him, the massive station hummed with activity as beings from dozens of worlds went about their business, secure in the knowledge that human guards were protecting them. None of them fully understood what they had chosen. They thought they were hiring guards. What they had actually done was acknowledge that in a galaxy full of logical, reasonable, survival-focused species, sometimes the universe needed someone willing to do something completely unreasonable. Sometimes, the universe needed humans. And now, for better or worse, that's exactly what they had. The only question remaining was whether they could live with the consequences of that choice.